What's poppin', everybody? This is Tom and Joey Entertainment. I am Joey, and welcome back to The Realest News. This is a weekly segment where Tom and I keep it real and discuss the most important news stories going on all around the world in order to keep you informed. And speaking of, I'm joined as always by Tom. Tom, what is happening?
What's crack-a-lackin'? Happy end of finals week for most of us. And hey, happy graduation for those people that are done and peacing out.
Yeah, absolutely. I had my last final exam today, so it was officially time to say rest in peace to the spring semester. So before we get into our main topic of the session, let's give you a little recap of the week.
On Saturday, April 28th, Washington, D.C. held their annual White House Correspondents' Dinner, hosted by The Daily Show correspondent Hassan Minhaj, where the media and the White House come together to make fun of each other.
Who is tweeting at 3 a.m. sober? Donald Trump, because it's 10 a.m. in Russia. Those are business hours.
However, this year, neither Trump nor anyone from his administration attended. Instead, Trump was seen at a campaign-style rally in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania.
A large group of Hollywood actors and Washington media are consoling each other in a hotel ballroom in our nation's capital right now,
Thus providing even more evidence towards the claim that the president is completely incapable of taking a joke.
On Wednesday, May 3rd, FBI Director James Comey strongly defended his decision to inform Congress in late October that he had reopened an FBI investigation into Democratic presidential nominee Hillary Clinton's use of a private email server while she was Secretary of State. Comey said that he did not think about what kind of impact it would have on the election.
It makes me mildly nauseous to think that we might have had some impact on the election, but honestly, it wouldn't change the decision.
Comey also told the Senate Judiciary Committee that the decision to go public 11 days before the election was, quote, one of the world's most painful experiences, but that he would indeed do it again.
And on Wednesday, May 3rd, lawmakers in D.C. reached a bipartisan agreement for a government spending bill of over $1 trillion. The spending bill includes $15 billion for defense spending and $1.5 billion for border security, but not a single dollar for Trump's infamous border wall. Trump seemed insistent that the lack of funding does not matter.
We'll build the wall, folks. Don't even worry about it. Go to sleep. Go home, go to sleep. Rest assured.
The spending bill also included some victories for Democrats, including the elimination of cuts scheduled for Planned Parenthood and a decreased cut than what was originally proposed for the Environmental Protection Agency.
So although it was a very busy week, our main topic of discussion involves Trump's latest infatuation with dictators all around the world. And when we talk about dictators all around the world, three specific instances come up.
The White House says that President Trump had a, quote, very friendly conversation with the president of the Philippines, Rodrigo Duterte, who, according to Amnesty International, has engaged in rampant crimes against humanity.
Now, if you don't know a lot about Filipino President Duterte, here are some stats regarding his policies. According to Human Rights Watch, since the inauguration of President Rodrigo Duterte on June 30, 2016, Philippine national police officers and unidentified vigilantes have killed over 7,000 people. The anti-drug campaign dubbed Operation Double Barrel, condemned by the United Nations, the United States, and the European Union, has targeted suspected drug dealers and users seemingly for arrest, but in practice has been a campaign of extrajudicial executions in impoverished areas of Manila and other urban areas around the Philippines. So along with Trump extending a White House invitation to the Filipino president, the second instance that we wanted to reference was something that happened a couple weeks ago at the conclusion of the Turkish election. On Monday, April 17th, President Donald Trump became the first Western leader to call Turkish President Erdogan to congratulate him on his victory in the referendum the day before, a vote that granted the executive a major expansion of power even as it came under criticism for international vote monitors. And finally, we wanted to reference Trump's comment about Supreme Leader of North Korea Kim Jong-un and his quote about how smart he believes a dictator is.
At a very young age, he was able to assume power. A lot of people, I'm sure, tried to take that power away, whether it was his uncle or anybody else. And he was able to do it. So obviously, he's a pretty smart cookie.
So there are three examples for what we talk about when we talk about Trump's infatuation with dictators all around the world. So Tom, the question I want to ask you is, do you think that his infatuation with these specific individuals considered by many as dictators is just his way of reaching out and kind of not making enemies with people? Or do you think it has some real damage on the image of the United States when we're making deals and inviting, especially with the Filipino President Duterte, inviting them to the White House? Do you think this kind of damages the image of the White House because of track records of these dictators.
I mean, at the very least, it's concerning, that's for sure. I can't deny the fact that if any president, not just Trump, but anyone in my lifetime was meeting with some of these people who just do, I mean, let's face it, a lot of these people just do god-awful things. Stuff that I can't stand by. Am I thrilled that the leader of our nation is doing them the service of inviting them into the White House and meeting with them? No. I think it's interesting because there's been a lot of talk in the last 8 years with who Obama invites to the White House, and a lot of them happen to be rappers. Here's a dictator doing horrible things, letting horrible things happen, and you're gonna let him come into the White House. Well, then where's the same standard? Why aren't you hammering him for doing the exact same thing? If this is his way of like infiltrating the enemy, I get it, and obviously we wouldn't know that because he's not going to tell us anytime soon. I do find it peculiar, that's for sure, and it definitely keeps me on the edge of my bed just thinking, why? That's what I keep on having to ask myself, is why?
These statements coming from Trump regarding these leaders and what, like I said before, what many regarded as dictators, are being criticized on both sides of the aisle. You have Democrats and Republicans talking about Trump making these statements and saying, why would he make these statements? Why would he extend the invitation to President Duterte? And then Trump said the reason why he wanted to extend the invitation, why he was fond of President Duterte, is because he said his polling numbers within the Philippines were high. The biggest problem I have is that the image it portrays for the United States, because when you look at just these massive human rights violations that are committed on the daily by these dictators, and especially with Duterte with his war on drugs, he's giving people of the Philippines just rights to gun down what they suspect are drug users and drug dealers. The image that it portrays in the United States is that we are willing to look past that or even be okay with it enough to invite these dictators, and specifically with Duterte, we're willing to invite them to the White House and say, yeah, come and have a meeting with us, we'll shake hands, we'll get a photo op. That's the biggest problem with me, because when you extend an invitation and then talk about why you like him because of his poll numbers and because of how he conducts himself within his country, that's almost, I mean, to many people around the world, that would be considered almost an endorsement of what he does with his quote-unquote the war on drugs. It's almost like an endorsement of that, and especially when it comes to Kim Jong-un and his quote-unquote smart cookie comment. You look at, what if you're South Korea? I mean, South Korea is one of the most, if not, I think it's top 5 or top 10, one of the most prosperous economies in the world and one of our biggest allies. You're South Korea, and you see the President of the United States talk about how the Supreme Leader of North Korea, who has spread propaganda about nuclearing South Korea and committing an attack against the United States, and Trump's talking about him as this smart cookie. So if you're South Korea, you're looking at, well, what the hell, dude? I thought you were on our side. You're praising the dude that wants to nuke the hell out of us.
It just goes back to the fact that, I mean, me and Joey have talked about it multiple times, but we understand calling Trump a misogynist, uneducated, blah, 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 ripping on his supporters, whatever. That doesn't help anybody. That doesn't do anything. But I do firmly believe that word choice matters. And it does bother me when Trump uses the wrong dialogue with the wrong people. I think that is a critical flaw in his presidency, and I thought it was a critical flaw before his presidency, in his campaigns, in his press conferences, and everything. I think that is one of the biggest detriments to his success, is his sheer dialogue. Every press conference, every time I watch him speak, I'm in awe that the President of the United States is saying these sort of things. And I understand a lot of people probably don't care, and a lot of people embrace them, but I just hope that people go home and they really think about what the actual words are going to mean to everybody else, because it's really easy to get inside that bubble and not think, oh, he's a president, he can do what he wants. That's not how it works. There's going to be a lot of repercussions, and they could be bad. Messing with Kim Jong-un and being buddy-buddy with anyone that's in the Turkish government right now is not a place that I want to be in.
And when you mentioned the Turkish president in particular, when we talked about President Erdogan of Turkey, he was democratically elected, and when we talk about that election a few weeks ago, it was an election to grant the expansion of those powers. And the reason why Trump giving him a call and congratulating him on those expansion of powers, the reason why that worries me is because Trump has said again and again in the past that he wants to limit the certain powers. Like he said he wanted to eliminate the filibuster rule within the Senate, and he said that he wanted to also critique libel laws so that he could sue news organizations that were spreading false stories about him, which is a very, very slippery slope. So you have our president calling a president whose expansion of powers was highly questioned by the UN election monitors. A lot of people were calling that it was fixed so Erdogan could get those expansion of powers, and that's where it worries me, because if Trump congratulates him and is kind of infatuated with this expansion of power, is that
come over to the White House, let me know what you did.
Yeah, exactly. Give me some tips on how to implement that into our government so then
Yeah.
I have more powers.
I can understand why someone would say, oh, that's a stretch. If anything has been proven this last year and a half, it's that anything can happen. Regardless if you like Trump or not, he is the ultimate variable in all of this, because it's just, you can't pin down what he's going to do. And I think for him, now that he's in office, now he's starting to see how hard it is and how much power he really doesn't have. Because I think we get a little bit too overwhelmed with this idea of, okay, we have one leader, he does everything, blah, blah. There's checks and balances for a reason. The executive branch, the judicial branch, they have separate jobs that they need to do in order for everything to be balanced and fair, right? Trump's the commander-in-chief, but if he wants to get a bill done, it is not that easy. If he wants to get a budget proposal done, it is not that easy. And I think it's very, very revealing in these last couple weeks that he's trying to get a lot done, and you have a guy from Turkey, like you said, bypassed a lot of the bull. Trump's sitting here like, hey, I would love to do that because I want everything I want to get done to actually get done. How do I implement that here? And I think that's a legitimate concern. I think that's totally reasonable. Will it happen? I really doubt it. I would be shocked. But like I said, anything is possible at this point.
Especially statements like these when he talks about eliminating the filibuster, and especially with, I mean, you look at Trump's track record in his first 100 days, he had both of his travel bans shut down by judicial federal courts. He had his budget proposal severely critiqued by the Democrats in order for it to pass. He obviously had the healthcare bill, which was not passed. All these promises that Trump had when it comes to the border wall, and especially the one with Obamacare, how they were going to say it was going to be repealed in place within like the first week, I think he said during the campaign, or probably the first hours of when he got inaugurated. Who knows what he said. And I'll be guilty of it as well. When he first got elected, obviously we've said it before, we weren't big fans of Trump. We didn't vote for Trump, but nonetheless, when he won the election, I will fall guilty to it too, is that I kind of over-exaggerated when it comes to the power that he had to legitimately change things because of the checks and balances that are implemented with our federal government. And it definitely gives me some hope with him, with Trump as a president and future presidents, because you have these checks and balances and it proves that it actually works. The funny thing is that these statements that he's making regarding getting rid of these certain rules, and especially the filibuster rule in particular, senators on both sides of the aisle don't want to get rid of it because Trump wants to do it now, because all he gives about is his 4 years or 8 years, as he wants to say it. He just wants those rights now, so he doesn't give a shit about the next president. But senators on both sides of the aisle are like, well, if the Republicans lose the White House, they're going to have a Democrat with that type of power, and the Democrats are giving a Republican president that type of power. So it's kind of funny to think that even it comes to the points where certain things like these statements that he's been making, that he's not getting support from either side of the aisle.
Maybe he unifies both parties. Maybe he does something so outrageous that both parties come and sing Kumbaya, and he's actually going to save the world, because we'll finally all be on the same page, because we'll just realize, all right, well, that's a little bit too far.
Ted Cruz is going to bring the guitar, and Chuck Schumer's going to bring the tunes and sing Kumbaya around the campfire.
Joe Biden and Rick Perry are going to share some scotch together.
Yep, and then just right in the back, you'll have Obama and Trump roasting s'mores. So there you have it, everybody. There are our opinions on Trump's recent infatuation with these dictators all around the world. If you have any particular comments about his infatuation with the dictators, if you don't think it's that big of a deal, if you have specific critiques about his invitation with President Duterte or his comments about Kim Jong-un, as always, please let us know in the comment section below. We love to hear from you. Remember, if you liked our video, go ahead and give it a like underneath that video and hit that subscribe button if you want to come back and see more videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And as always, I'm Joey.
And I'm Tom.
We will see you next time. Peace.